For more, please like and subscribe. Mega Cyber Sleep.
Chapter 1. The rain was coming down hard on the neon-lit streets of Cyber City. I was sitting in my office, a dingy cubicle on the 5th floor of a rundown building in the downtown district. The sign on the door said Jack Marlowe, Private Investigator. It was a lie. I was no more a private investigator than the guy who sold me the sign. I was a hacker, a cyber cowboy, a data thief. I made a living by breaking into other people's systems and stealing their secrets. Sometimes I did it for money, sometimes for fun, sometimes for justice. But mostly for money. I was staring at my computer screen, watching the data flow through the network. I had hacked into the mainframe of a major corporation, looking for something juicy to sell on the black market. I had found nothing so far, just boring financial reports and employee records. I was about to give up and try another target when I heard a knock on the door. I looked up and saw a woman standing in the doorway. She was tall and slender, with long black hair and green eyes. She wore a red dress that hugged her curves and a black coat that covered her shoulders. She looked like she had stepped out of a holovid, or maybe a dream. She smiled at me and said in a sweet voice,
"Mr. Marlowe? I'm Lola. I need your help."
I blinked and rubbed my eyes. I thought I was hallucinating. She was too beautiful to be real. Too beautiful to be in my office. Too beautiful to need my help. "Come in," I said, trying to sound professional. "Have a seat." She walked in and closed the door behind her. She sat down on the chair opposite my desk and crossed her legs. She looked around the room with curiosity and disdain. She saw the piles of papers, the old books, the dusty gadgets, the wires and cables that connected my computer to the network. She saw the poster on the wall that said "The truth is out there." She saw the gun on the corner of the desk, a .38 special that I kept for emergencies. She looked at me and smiled again. She had perfect teeth and red lips. She said,
"Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Marlowe. I know you must be very busy."
"Not at all," I lied. "I always have time for a new client. Especially one as charming as you." She laughed softly. She had a musical laugh that made me feel warm inside. She said,
"You're very kind, Mr. Marlowe. But I'm afraid I'm not here to charm you. I'm here to hire you."
She reached into her coat and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to me and said,
"This is for you. It's a retainer fee. 5,000 credits."
I opened the envelope and saw a stack of bills. They were real, not counterfeit. They had the hologram of the president and the watermark of the bank. They were more money than I had seen in a long time. I looked at her and said, 5,000 credits? That's a lot of money, Miss Lola. What do you want me to do for you?" She leaned forward and looked into my eyes. She had a serious expression on her face. She said,
"I want you to find my brother, Mr. Marlowe. He's missing, and I'm afraid he's in trouble."
I raised my eyebrows and said, "Your brother? What's his name?" She said,
"His name is Leo. Leo Larkin. He's a journalist. He works for the Cyber City Times."
I nodded. I had heard of the Cyber City Times. It was one of the few independent media outlets in the city. It was known for its investigative reporting and its exposés of corruption and crime. It was also known for being a thorn in the side of the megacorp and the government. It was not a safe job to work for the Cyber City Times. I said, What kind of trouble is he in? She sighed and said,
I don't know exactly. He didn't tell me much. He said he was working on a big story. A story that could change everything. A story that some people would kill to keep secret.
She paused and bit her lip. She looked worried and scared. She said,
He called me 2 days ago. He said he had found something important. Something that could blow the lid off the whole thing. He said he needed to meet me in person. He said he couldn't trust anyone else. He said he would send me a message with the time and place.
She reached into her coat again and pulled out a small device. It was a burner phone, a cheap and disposable phone that could not be traced or hacked. She handed it to me and said,
This is the phone he used to call me. He said he would send me a message on this phone only. He said
I took the phone and looked at it. It was a simple model, with a small screen and a keypad. It had no camera, no internet, no apps, no games, no features. Just a phone. I pressed the power button and turned it on. The screen lit up and showed a single message. It read, Lola, I need your help. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th and Main at midnight tonight. Come alone and don't tell anyone. This is very important. Leo. I looked at the message and then at Lola. She looked at me with hope and fear in her eyes. She said,
That's the last thing I heard from him, Mr. Marlowe. He never showed up at the warehouse. I waited for him all night, but he never came. I tried to call him, but his phone was off. I don't know what happened to him, Mr. Marlowe. I don't know if he's alive or dead.
She reached out and touched my hand. She said,
Please, Mr. Marlowe, please find my brother for me.
Chapter 2. I looked at her and felt a pang of sympathy. She was a beautiful woman in a bad situation. She was worried sick about her brother. She was desperate for my help. She was willing to pay me a lot of money. I also felt a pang of curiosity. I wanted to know what Leo's big story was. I wanted to know what he had found that was so important. I wanted to know who was behind his disappearance. I wanted to know what was going on in Cyber City. I was a hacker, a cyber cowboy, a data thief. I lived for secrets. And this sounded like the biggest secret of them all. I squeezed her hand and said, Don't worry, Miss Lola. I'll find your brother for you. I'll find out what happened to him. I'll find out the truth. She smiled and said,
Thank you, Mr. Marlowe.
She leaned forward and kissed me on the cheek. She smelled like roses and rain. She said,
Please call me Lola, Mr. Marlowe.
I said, Okay, Lola. And please call me Jack. She nodded and said,
Okay, Jack.
She stood up and put on her coat. She said,
I'll leave you to your work, Jack. Please let me know if you find anything.
I said, I will, Lola. Don't worry. She walked to the door and opened it. She looked back at me and said,
Be careful, Jack. This could be dangerous.
She closed the door behind her and left. I stared at Leo's message on my phone. What had he uncovered? What was I getting into? Would I regret this? No time for doubts. I pocketed my phone, grabbed my gun and coat, and left my office. The case was waiting. Chapter 3. I got into my hover car, a black and chrome model that I had bought second-hand from a junk dealer. It was old and battered, but it ran well enough. It had a decent engine, a decent computer, and a decent stealth system. It also had a few modifications that I had made myself. A scanner, a jammer, a hacker, and a blaster. They came in handy in my line of work. I started the car and lifted off the ground. I set the destination to the old warehouse on 5th and Main. It was where Leo had told Lola to meet him. It was where I hoped to find some clues. The car flew through the air, dodging other vehicles and buildings. The city was a blur of lights and shadows. The rain was still falling, making everything look wet and shiny. I looked out the window and saw the signs of the megacorp. They were everywhere. They owned everything. They controlled everything. They were the ones who made Cyber City what it was. A neon-lit dystopia where high-tech corporations, low-life criminals and rogue hackers competed for power and profit. I hated them. I hated what they had done to the city. I hated what they had done to the people. I hated what they had done to me. I used to work for one of them. A big one. A powerful one. A dangerous one. I used to be one of their best hackers. I used to break into other systems and steal their secrets. I used to do it for money, for fun, for justice. But then something happened. Something that changed everything. Something that made me quit. Something that made me run. Something that made me hide. Something that made me a private eye. I shook my head and tried to forget. I tried to focus on the case. I wondered what Leo's big story was. I wondered what he had found that was so important. I wondered who was behind his disappearance. I wondered if I would find him alive or dead. I wondered if I would find him at all. I followed Leo's address to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. I parked my car and checked my gun. I had a bad feeling about this. I knocked on the door of room 17. No answer. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was dark and smelled of blood. I saw Leo's body on the floor, a bullet hole in his forehead. Next to him was a briefcase, open and empty. I heard a click behind me. I turned around and saw a man pointing a gun at me. He had a scarred face and a cold smile.
Hello, Marlo. We meet again.